Man accused of killing a mother and two of her children was back in a Charlotte courtroom.
Benjamin Taylor is charged with the murder of 22-year-old Markayla Johnson, 4-year-old Miracle Johnson, and 7-month-old Messiah Johnson.
March 15, 2024, Charlotte, North Carolina. Police officers force open the door to apartment 4B. The air conditioning is blasting, 62 degrees in the middle of spring. 23 air fresheners are scattered throughout the rooms. Candles burning on every surface. Something is very, very wrong. They move toward the hall closet, open it, and what they find inside changes everything. But that's not even the worst discovery. The next day, investigators search a silver Chevy Camaro parked outside the building. They pop the trunk. 2 gym bags sit inside. What's in those bags will haunt them for the rest of their lives. A 22-year-old mother, her 4-year-old daughter, her 7-month-old son, all dead, all hidden. And here's the twisted part. For 2 months, nobody knew they were gone. Text messages kept coming from the mother's phone. Excuses, delays, promises to call back soon. Her family knew something felt off. The messages didn't sound like her, but they had no idea what was really happening. While they waited for a phone call that would never come, someone was living in that apartment, walking past those bodies every single day, pretending everything was fine. Who would do something like that? Why would they do it? And how did they almost get away with it? This is the story of Markayla Johnson, a young mother who believed in second chances and paid the ultimate price. This is the story of Benjamin Taylor, a man with a dark past and an even darker plan. And this is the story of 2 months of deception, a family's desperate search, and a discovery that shook an entire city. Welcome to Shadows of Crime, where we dig into the cases that keep you up at night. I'm your host, and what you're about to hear is gonna mess with your head. Before we go any further, hit that like button and subscribe. Share this video. Markayla's story needs to be heard. And drop a comment. Where are you watching from today? Because this case, it's about to get wild. Before we get to the nightmare, you need to understand who Markayla Johnson really was. Born and raised in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, Markayla was the kind of person everyone wanted in their corner. Her family describes her with words that paint a picture of someone almost too good for this world. Sweethearted, giving, compassionate. She was a good person, her mother would later say through tears.
"She's a good person, and everybody knows Kaylin would do anything for you. She didn't deserve this."
But here's the thing about being kind in a cruel world. It makes you a target. Markayla's grandmother put it bluntly. She was loving, but people took advantage of that. And they did, over and over again. Markayla also struggled with mental health issues, something her family would later share, not to diminish her memory, but to explain how someone like Benjamin Taylor could worm his way into her life. When you're vulnerable, when you're searching for stability, when you just want someone to see you, that's when predators strike. But everything shifted when Markayla became a mother. January 2020, baby Miracle enters the world, and suddenly Markayla transforms. Friends and family watched her become what they called a mama bear. Fiercely protective, endlessly devoted. Her Facebook page became a shrine to motherhood. Photos of Miracle filled every post. Miracle laughing, Miracle playing, Miracle sleeping peacefully in her arms. The captions were always the same. My reason. Then in June 2023, baby Messiah arrived. A boy with his mother's eyes and a smile that could light up a room. Now she had 2 reasons to wake up every morning, 2 reasons to work hard, 2 reasons to believe in a better future. Neither of the children's fathers were involved. Markayla was doing it alone. Single mother, 2 kids under 5, making it work with grace and determination. Her social media told the story. Every milestone documented, every moment celebrated. On January 22, 2024, she posted a photo of Miracle and Messiah standing in front of a Christmas tree. The caption? My reason. It would be her last post because somewhere between that photo and the next sunrise, Markayla met a man online who promised her she wouldn't have to do it alone anymore. She believed him. That belief would cost her everything. The exact moment Markayla Johnson met Benjamin Joseph Taylor is lost somewhere in the digital void of dating apps and social media. But what we do know is this: he found her when she was vulnerable, and he knew exactly what to say. Benjamin Taylor was 34 years old, 12 years older than Markayla. To a young single mother struggling to make ends meet, maybe he seemed like the answer. Mature, experienced, someone who could help carry the weight. He lived in Charlotte, North Carolina, 170 miles from Myrtle Beach. Not close, but not impossible. They talked, they connected, and Benjamin made promises. Markayla's family was concerned about the age gap, but she was an adult, a mother, capable of making her own choices. They wanted her to be happy. They wanted her to find love. They wanted those babies to have a father figure. So when Markayla decided to move to Charlotte in the fall of 2023, her family supported her. It was a huge step, leaving behind everything familiar, everyone she knew, uprooting her children for a man she'd met online. But love makes people do wild things. Here's what Markayla didn't know. Benjamin Taylor wasn't who he claimed to be. Public records tell a different story, a darker story. Multiple assault charges, kidnapping charges, domestic violence incidents stretching back years. This wasn't a man who lost his temper once or twice. This was a pattern, a lifestyle. He had a history of targeting vulnerable women, single mothers, women with mental health struggles, women who were isolated, desperate for connection. And once he had them, he'd systematically cut them off from everyone who cared about them. Friends stopped hearing from them. Family visits became rare. Phone calls grew shorter, stranger. It's called isolation, and it's the first step in every abuser's playbook. But Markayla didn't know any of this. She packed up her life, loaded Miracle and Messiah into the car, and drove to Charlotte, believing she was starting a new chapter. Within weeks, something went wrong. November 2023. Markayla suddenly returns to Myrtle Beach with both kids. She doesn't explain much, but the message is clear. Things with Benjamin didn't work out. Her family is relieved. Whatever happened, at least she got out, at least she's home, at least it's over. Except it wasn't over. January 2024. Markayla makes a decision that will seal her fate. She goes back to Charlotte, back to Benjamin, back to the man who will kill her. She moves into an apartment on Orchard Trace Lane, and this time Benjamin moves in with her. Second chances, right? She believed people could change. She was wrong. Hold up. Real talk for a second. Have you ever ignored a red flag because you wanted to believe someone could change? Maybe you saw the warning signs but convinced yourself it would be different this time? Drop your story in the comments. No judgment here, just truth. And if this case is already getting under your skin, hit that like button, subscribe. Trust me, we're just getting started. January 20th, 2024. Mark that date, because it's the last time Markayla's family heard her actual voice. The last time they knew for certain it was really her on the other end of the line. After that, everything changed. 2 days later, on January 22nd, Markayla posted that photo of Miracle and Messiah in front of the Christmas tree. My reason. The same caption she'd used 100 times before. Then, nothing. Her Facebook went silent. No more photos of the kids. No birthday countdowns. No random posts about motherhood. For a woman who documented every moment of her children's lives, the silence was deafening. But her family was still getting text messages. Short ones, delayed responses, messages that came hours after they reached out, sometimes a full day later. A sorry, been busy, can't talk right now, I'll call you later, except she never did. Markayla's mother tried calling straight to voicemail. She tried again. No answer. Her aunt sent messages asking how the kids were doing. The responses were brief, vague, nothing like Markayla's usual warm, detailed updates. Something felt wrong. Family members started comparing notes. The texts didn't sound like her. The tone was off. The word choices were different. One family member would later tell police, "Text messages received from her phone are unlike her and do not match up with how she normally communicates." They tried video calling. Every single attempt was declined. They asked for recent photos of Miracle and Messiah. None came. They suggested visiting. Excuses piled up. Not a good time. The kids are sick. Maybe next month. By mid-February, the anxiety was eating them alive. This wasn't Markayla. This wasn't how she talked. This wasn't how she treated her family. Markayla's mother made a decision. She was done waiting for answers. She was going to Charlotte. She was going to see her daughter face to face, whether Markayla wanted her to or not. Because deep down, in that place where a mother's instinct lives, she already knew. Something terrible had happened. She just didn't know how terrible. Not yet. Here's where this story takes a turn that'll make your stomach drop. While Markayla's family was receiving those text messages, while they were being told, "I'll call you later," while they were getting excuse after excuse, Markayla was already dead. She had been dead for weeks. And the person sending those messages? Benjamin Taylor. He had her phone, he had access to her accounts, and for 6 weeks he played the role of Markayla Johnson, texting her family just enough to keep them from showing up at the door. But he wasn't good at it. The messages were too short, too cold, too unlike the woman who poured her heart into every conversation. Markayla's family knew something was off. They just couldn't prove it. When investigators finally got their hands on Benjamin's devices, they found something that made their blood run cold. Drafts. Saved drafts of messages he planned to send from Markayla's phone. His search history told an even darker story. How to prevent decomposition odor. How to send texts from another person's phone. Body decomposition timeline. He wasn't just covering his tracks, he was studying, planning, making sure he could keep up the lie as long as possible. And while he was playing this sick game of pretend, he was also draining Markayla's bank accounts, selling her belongings, taking money from a dead woman to fund his own life. But here's the part that'll haunt you. He was living in that apartment. The same apartment where Markayla's body was decomposing, in a storage container in the hall closet. Every day he walked past her, got dressed, made food, slept, all while her body rotted just feet away. The air conditioning was cranked down to 62 degrees, an attempt to slow the decomposition. 23 air fresheners were placed strategically throughout the apartment, candles burning constantly, anything to mask the smell. And the kids? Miracle and Messiah weren't in the apartment. They were in the trunk of his car, stuffed into gym bags like luggage, parked outside in the lot where anyone could walk by. For 2 months, Benjamin Taylor maintained this nightmare. 2 months of fake texts, 2 months of excuses, 2 months of living with the evidence of his crimes. Surveillance footage would later show him making late-night trips to the car. Investigators believe he was checking on the bodies, making sure they were still concealed. He was also caught on camera buying more air fresheners, more plastic containers, more supplies to keep his secret hidden. But decomposition doesn't care how many air fresheners you buy. The smell was getting worse. Neighbors were starting to notice. Time was running out. Benjamin knew it. So on March 6, 2024, surveillance cameras captured him doing something that would seal his fate. He boarded a Greyhound bus, and he left North Carolina. He didn't take the car, couldn't risk it with 2 bodies in the trunk. He just grabbed what he could carry and ran. But he didn't run far enough. If you're not subscribed yet, what are you even doing? This is the kind of story that sticks with you. Hit that button right now. Share this video. Markayla's story needs to reach everyone. And here's a question for the comments. What would you do if a family member's text suddenly felt wrong? Would you trust your gut or wait for proof? Let's talk about it. March 2nd, 2024. Markayla's family had waited long enough. The strange texts, the declined video calls, the excuses. None of it made sense. So they got in the car and made the 170-mile drive from Myrtle Beach to Charlotte. They had the address. Orchard Trace Lane, apartment 4B, When they arrived, the building felt too quiet. They found the apartment and knocked on the door. No answer. They knocked again. Harder this time. Called out Markayla's name. Pressed their ears against the door, listening for any sound. A child's voice, footsteps, a TV playing. Nothing. For hours they stood in that hallway, knocking, waiting, hoping someone would open that door. Nobody did. The silence was suffocating. No laughter from Miracle, no crying from baby Messiah. Just nothing. They knew. Deep in their bones, they knew something was horribly wrong. The next day, March 3rd, they walked into the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department and filed a missing persons report. They explained everything. The last real conversation on January 20th. The weird text messages. The social media silence. The unanswered door. Police took the report, but initially they treated it as a possible voluntary absence. The apartment door was locked, no signs of forced entry. Maybe Markayla just didn't want to be found, but her family wasn't buying it. They pushed harder. March 5th. Officers returned to the apartment with family members for an official welfare check. They knocked. No response. They tried the door. Locked from the inside. A maintenance worker confirmed something chilling. According to his records, nobody had entered or exited that apartment in weeks. The door had been locked and untouched. If nobody had gone in or out, where was Markayla? Where were the children? Then came the surveillance footage. March 6th. Cameras caught Benjamin Taylor boarding a Greyhound bus out of North Carolina. The boyfriend had fled. That changed everything. This wasn't a voluntary absence anymore. This was a criminal investigation. March 8th. Police Chief Johnny Jennings held a press conference. Missing person flyers went up across Charlotte. The media ran the story. Social media exploded with shares. Behind Chief Jennings stood Markayla's family, faces frozen in fear, eyes red from crying. "We are urgently seeking information about Markayla Johnson and her 2 children," Jennings said. "If you know anything, contact us immediately." The community responded. Tips flooded in. Everyone was looking for Markayla and her babies. But it was already too late. March 15th, 2024. Nearly 2 months after Markayla's last real contact with her family, investigators obtained a search warrant. They entered apartment 4B. The cold hit them first. Then the smell. They moved through the apartment, documenting everything, following the scent to its source. The hall closet. They opened it, and there she was. Markayla Johnson's body was found inside a large plastic storage container, the kind you'd buy at Walmart to store holiday decorations or old clothes. She had been dead for nearly 2 months. The apartment told the story Benjamin tried so hard to hide. Air conditioning set to 62 degrees. 23 air fresheners scattered across every room. Candles on every surface. All of it a desperate attempt to mask the reality of what he'd done. Investigators worked through the night, processing the scene, documenting every detail. But there was a question nobody wanted to ask out loud. Where were the children? Miracle and Messiah weren't in the apartment. Not in the bedrooms, not in the closets, not anywhere. Then someone remembered the car. March 16th, 2024. The next morning, a silver Chevy Camaro sat in the parking lot outside the building. It had been there for days, untouched since Benjamin fled. Officers approached the vehicle, looked through the windows. Nothing visible from the outside. They popped the trunk. 2 gym bags, the kind you take to the gym or pack for a weekend trip. Ordinary. Unremarkable. Inside those bags were 4-year-old Miracle and 7-month-old Messiah. Investigators who had worked homicides for decades, men and women who thought they'd seen everything, stood in that parking lot and wept. The autopsies came back weeks later and the results were devastating. Cause of death, fentanyl poisoning. All 3 victims. But the toxicology reports revealed something even more sinister. Miracle and Messiah had multiple substances in their systems. Fentanyl, cocaine, Benadryl, melatonin. A 7-month-old baby doesn't accidentally ingest fentanyl. A 4-year-old doesn't choose to take cocaine. Someone gave it to them. Someone made sure they wouldn't wake up. Markayla's autopsy showed something that made investigators sick. Ligature marks on her wrists, evidence of restraints. She had been tied up. The medical examiner also found naloxone in her system, a drug used to reverse opioid overdoses. Did Benjamin try to save her at some point, then change his mind? Or was he experimenting, testing doses, making sure he got it right? Nobody knows. What investigators do know is this: based on the evidence, there's a possibility Markayla was still alive when her children were killed. She may have been forced to watch them die, restrained, helpless, watching the man she trusted poison her babies. Chief Johnny Jennings stood before the media again, this time with news nobody wanted to hear.
But unfortunately have some grave news to report and some information to talk about in reference to a missing persons report that was first put out on March the 8th, on Friday, March the 8th, for 22-year-old Markayla Johnson and her children, 4-year-old Miracle Johnson and 7-month-old Messiah Johnson. That search warrant unfortunately revealed the bodies of all three, Markayla, Miracle, and Messiah.
Benjamin Taylor thought he could disappear. After boarding that Greyhound bus on March 6th, he traveled west, away from Charlotte, away from the apartment, away from the bodies he'd hidden for 2 months. He made it all the way to California. Imperial County, a desert region near the Mexican border, remote, isolated, the kind of place where someone could vanish if they tried hard enough. Maybe he was planning to cross into Mexico. Maybe he thought he'd blend into the landscape and never be found. He was wrong. March 18, 2024, just 3 days after Markayla's body was discovered. Imperial County Sheriff's deputies received a tip. A man matching Benjamin Taylor's description had been spotted in the desert near the border. They mobilized immediately. Deputies scoured the area, searching through brush and rocky terrain under the scorching California sun. Then they saw it. A blue tent, set up in the middle of nowhere. They approached cautiously, weapons drawn. "Benjamin Taylor, come out with your hands up." For a moment, nothing. Just the wind whipping across the desert. Then the tent flap opened. Benjamin emerged, hands raised, squinting against the sunlight. He didn't run, didn't fight, didn't resist. Body cam footage captured the moment. Benjamin standing there in a dirty t-shirt, looking exhausted, defeated, like a man who knew his time was up. Deputies searched the tent. Inside they found unregistered pill bottles. The contents? Likely fentanyl, the same drug that killed Markayla, Miracle, and Messiah. He'd been carrying it with him the entire time. Benjamin Joseph Taylor was arrested and charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder. The extradition process began immediately. California wasn't going to hold him. North Carolina wanted him back to face justice. March 22, 2024, Benjamin was transported back to Charlotte in handcuffs. His first court appearance was brief. He stood before a judge, expressionless, as the charges were read aloud. 3 counts of first-degree murder. The prosecutor didn't mince words. "Your Honor, this defendant is a flight risk and a danger to the community. He fled across the country after committing these heinous acts. We request he be held without bond." The judge didn't hesitate. "Bonds denied. Mr. Taylor, you will remain in custody pending trial." Benjamin was led out of the courtroom in shackles. Outside, Chief Johnny Jennings addressed the media once more. "Benjamin Taylor is exactly where he belongs, behind bars. He will face the full weight of the justice system for what he did to Markayla, Miracle, and Messiah." He paused, his voice hardening. "It is a tremendous danger to the public, and he will never hurt anyone again." The community exhaled. He was caught, but the nightmare was far from over. April 6, 2024. Hundreds gathered at a funeral home in Myrtle Beach to say goodbye to Markayla, Miracle, and Messiah. 3 white caskets. 1 large, 2 heartbreakingly small. The family chose a pink theme, Miracle's favorite color. Balloons floated above the caskets, stuffed animals surrounded them, children's books were stacked nearby, donations in the kids' honor to local libraries. Photos of happier times played on a screen. Markayla laughing, Miracle blowing out birthday candles, baby Messiah sleeping peacefully in his mother's arms. The same images that once brought joy now brought unbearable pain. Markayla's mother stood at the podium, her voice breaking with every word. My daughter was kind. She loved hard. She trusted people even when she shouldn't have, and that trust, it killed her. She looked out at the crowd, tears streaming down her face. She didn't deserve this. Those babies didn't deserve this. And I will spend every day for the rest of my life making sure people remember their names. The service ended with the release of pink and white balloons into the South Carolina sky, hundreds of them rising higher and higher until they disappeared, a symbol of 3 souls finally free. But the impact of their deaths didn't end at that funeral. Within weeks, domestic violence hotlines across the Carolinas reported a 43% increase in calls. Women who had been silent for years suddenly found the courage to reach out. Markayla's story was saving lives. Shelters saw a surge in women seeking help. Support groups filled up. Conversations about warning signs and red flags dominated social media. One woman posted, "I saw myself in Markayla. The age gap, the isolation, the weird texts my family was getting. I got out because of her story." Another wrote, "I ignored the red flags because I wanted to believe he'd changed. Markayla's death woke me up. I left last week." Markayla's family started a foundation in her name, dedicated to helping single mothers escape abusive relationships. They partnered with local organizations to provide resources, safe housing, and legal support. If Markayla's death can prevent even one more tragedy, then her story matters, her aunt said in an interview. Back in Charlotte, neighbors on Orchard Trace Lane struggled to process what had happened in their building. One neighbor remembered hearing Miracle's laughter through the walls in January. Then, suddenly, silence. "I thought they moved out," she said, her voice hollow. "I had no idea they were dead the whole time." The apartment sat empty for months. Nobody wanted to live there. Some nightmares don't leave when the bodies do. This is why we do this. This is why your likes, your shares, your comments matter. If you know someone in a relationship that feels wrong, send them this video. It could save their life. Subscribe if you haven't already. We're building a community that doesn't look away from the hard truths. Drop a comment. What warning sign do you wish you'd paid attention to? June 2024, 4 months after his arrest, Benjamin Taylor sat across from prosecutors as they laid out a plea deal. The evidence against him was overwhelming. The bodies, the fake texts, the search history, the surveillance footage, the fentanyl in the tent. Any reasonable person would take the deal. Benjamin rejected it. He pleaded not guilty to all 3 counts of first-degree murder. His trial was scheduled for December 2025, more than a year away. Markayla's family would have to wait. Relive the nightmare, sit in a courtroom and hear every horrific detail. But they were ready, because they wanted the world to know exactly what Benjamin Taylor did. The evidence prosecutors planned to present was damning. Start with the bodies. Markayla in a storage container, the children in gym bags, the apartment set to 62 degrees, 23 air fresheners that couldn't hide the truth. Then the toxicology reports. Fentanyl in all 3 victims, but also cocaine, Benadryl, and melatonin in the children's systems. A 7-month-old doesn't take fentanyl by accident. Someone administered it. Someone made a choice. The ligature marks on Markayla's wrists told another story. She was restrained, held against her will. The naloxone in her system raised questions prosecutors intended to answer. Did Benjamin try to reverse the overdose? Was he experimenting with doses, or did something go wrong with his plan? Then there were the fake text messages, drafts saved on his phone, carefully worded to sound like Markayla. 6 weeks of deception while he drained her bank accounts and sold her belongings. His search history was a prosecutor's dream. How to prevent decomposition odor, how to send texts from another person's phone, body decomposition timeline. This wasn't a crime of passion. This wasn't a moment of rage. This was premeditated, calculated, cold. Surveillance footage showed Benjamin making late-night trips to the car where the children's bodies were hidden, buying more air fresheners, more cleaning supplies, more tools to maintain his lie, and finally his flight to California, the tent in the desert, the unregistered pills found inside. Chief Johnny Jennings addressed the media after Benjamin's not guilty plea. The evidence speaks for itself. We have a strong case, and we are confident justice will be served. But he also admitted something that haunted everyone involved. There's no known clear motive. We may never fully understand why he did this. Benjamin's criminal history offered clues: assault, kidnapping, domestic violence, a pattern of targeting vulnerable women and isolating them from their families. This wasn't his first time hurting someone. It was just the first time he killed. Markayla's family released a statement: "We will be there every day of that trial. We will look him in the eye, and we will make sure the jury sees Markayla, Miracle, and Messiah as the beautiful souls they were, not just evidence in a case." December 2025 couldn't come fast enough. Let's talk about the red flags everyone missed until it was too late. Benjamin was 12 years older than Markayla. Age gaps aren't always dangerous, but when combined with other factors, pay attention. He had a violent criminal history: assault, kidnapping, domestic violence. That information was public. But Markayla likely never knew. She moved away from her support system, left Myrtle Beach, left her family, isolated herself in a city where she knew nobody but him. The relationship moved fast. They met online, and within months, she'd uprooted her entire life. Then came the communication changes: short texts, declined video calls, excuses that didn't add up. If someone you love suddenly stops sounding like themselves, trust your instincts. If they're being isolated from family and friends, that's not love, that's control. If their partner has a history of violence, believe the pattern, not the promise of change. Here's the truth: domestic violence doesn't always announce itself with bruises. Sometimes it's subtle: a controlling comment, monitoring phone calls, limiting access to money. And sometimes, by the time you realize what's happening, it's already too late. National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-799-7233. If you're in danger, reach out, tell someone, make a plan. Your life depends on it. 3 lives, gone in an instant, hidden for 2 months. Markayla believed in second chances. She believed people could change. She paid for that belief with everything. Benjamin Taylor will face trial in December 2025. The evidence is overwhelming. The outcome seems certain. But no conviction will bring back a mother's smile or a child's laughter. If you see something, say something. If you feel something's wrong, trust it. Share this video. Let Markayla's story reach someone who needs it. Hit subscribe. Drop a comment, and remember, the truth is always darker than you think. Stay vigilant.